In the meantime, if you guys want to tweet for those who came in after the beginning of the presentation, the hashtag we use is NYDBM. And that's certainly great, as long as you say nice things.
I'll hang out here between
This one? That one? Oh, I'll just wave at you and you can advance it. Does that work?
Perfect.
Huh? I don't know where the clicker is. Ah, it's hidden over there. Thank you very much.
So I'll wave at you.
Yeah, you can wave at me. And then. Good evening, everyone. My name is Neil Capel. I'm the founder and CEO of Sailthru. This is Daniel Krasner, who's my colleague and heads up our data scientist team. So if you have any really complicated questions, he's your guy. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sailthru, and then we'll kind of get into really a lot of where we use big data. So we are a personalization platform, a behavioral communications platform, if you will. What that means is that we actually will use the big data that we collect to target the communications that we give out en masse to the user base. An example of that is we serve publishers such as Business Insider, AOL, Huffington Post. Rather than sending the same headlines out to every single one of you in this room, in an email, we'll actually select the content that's most relevant to you in the order that's most interesting to you, remove anything you've already consumed, and put it in front of you. Right? For us, we're an engagement platform. We want to make sure you have the most engaging experience as possible, so that when you come to the site from the email as well, that you're being continually engaged and put the right content in front of you. The way that we do that is we actually follow an awful lot of the traffic that happens on site for our customers. So we will create a user profile for each and every one of you in this room under our client's domain, as it were, and we'll follow and index your traffic on that site. So if you can imagine that we serve the Huffington Post and they turn on one day, and we're essentially absorbing all of their traffic, small amounts, but all of their traffic to index that into individual data points on a user basis. And that enables us to really communicate en masse at a single level. The way that we're doing that, when we're taking an entire sort of website's worth of traffic, indexing it down to an individual, we're trying to take the user's interest versus the available amount of content that there is, whether it be content or product, match that up, take out anything you may have consumed in the publishing model. Maybe we put the same product back in front of you as an e-commerce model, but all of that happens at an instant and in real time so that we can provide that. If you think of a publisher that normally their sort of efforts is to cache their web pages all over, et cetera, get the right content, they're showing their content, we're actually delivering for our customers multiple, recommendations for that single user on that site at any one point. So there's an awful lot of scale to this that we're looking across our entire client base. And that's sort of where we are. Some of our clients come and see, this is kind of some of the results that we see. This is about engaging you, so that when we're engaging in the inbox, when you see when we see you on Twitter and when you see the brand that you're affiliated with on Twitter, you're more likely to respond. And that's really where we are. The data piece for us is about how do we predict when you disengage. Right? We want to elongate the customer lifetime value. So we're trying to pinpoint the point at which you are getting bored of the content, you are getting to the point of disengagement. And that's where the science side of things comes in on Daniel's side, where he's literally working on pinpointing that point as well as other items of that data set.
That's right. So
I'll go on to that one. There you go. Or we can give it to you.
Ah,
there you go.
Success.
Look at that. It's all very high tech.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So as Neil said, that's really the crux of the story, is to keep the user engaged here. But there are sort of many flavors of this, right? And since there are a number of different actions that the user can take, a number of combinations of these actions, and a number of sort of quantifiable values that the clients are interested in, like if you're a publisher, you might be interested in page views, but you also might be interested in time spent on the site as well, or the amount of the content that was viewed at that given moment. If you're e-commerce, you might be interested in conversion or in quantity or in how traffic is driven to your site. So it's sort of these actions that we're trying to understand or predict on. And there are sort of a couple of different ways that I think about this in terms of product development. And I really think that most data scientists not that fond of that term, but in many ways are product devs, right? Because anything that you're going to build has to be used by someone. And there, at least in the sphere of Sailthru, there are a couple of ways to think about what kind of products you can build on the data side. And you can build an active product or a passive product. And an example of that is that you can build a product that a client will actually use, right? So you might be able to predict when an individual will unsubscribe from an email, right? You give, say, the probability of someone unsubscribing from an email with the next email that they're going to receive within a certain time frame, right? That could be a number on a scale from 0 to 100, a percent. And the client can use this, right? They can try to re-engage that user. They can leave them alone for a while. They can send a coupon and all of these things. So that's an example of an active product. Versus on the other side, you can have something that's passive, that's running in the background, like a recommendation system, which is what Neil was talking about, right? So it's a system that's going to be recommending content, recommending products, and it's not a product that the client engages with on a daily basis or on a campaign basis, but it's something that's an integral part of the system itself. So, and they're kind of, these things sort of branch out into the sort of the things that clients see, which has a lot to do with visualization and data visualization and how these things are presented to actual back-end statistical behavioral modeling and all of that. So I think that's what this slide is about. So some of the typical disengagement situations that you're going to see in this plot here is kind of an aggregate of a bunch of the things we see. Is that you end up having users that come into the system, and on day 1 or day 0 or day 0 through 3, they're going to do everything they'll ever do, and then they will stop doing it, right? Or maybe they won't stop doing it, but they'll bumble around for a while, and then some days will pass by and they'll die. So you'll have this sort of spike, then an exponential decay, and then maybe a death, right? So one of the cruxes, this is just say opens, clicks, and purchases. In this case, aggregated across a bunch of different clients. But the point is that you can imagine just the low-hanging fruit if you can prevent or elongate any of this, right? And that's essentially where I'm thinking about most of these things. You can do that in a bunch of different ways. You can do visualizations. You can have nifty, pretty visualizations. You can have real-time geoplot maps that are telling you where people are doing things, where people are buying, where people are opening, where people are clicking. And that's nice. But the way I like to do these things, or at least the way I'd like to push that, is that the direction is that if you have any sort of visualization and the client is interacting with it, they should be able to act on that, right? Meaning that they should be able to replay an email blast from a week ago, a campaign, and compare it to a campaign they sent yesterday. Say 100 times real-time speed, and see how things propagated. And if they can see that things are propagated in a particular area, they should be able to select those users. If every dot is a user in the system, they should be able to say, well, why are they active here, or why are they not active here, and things along those lines. Well, I think I said most of that. Next. So one of the things that has been deployed and is actually running really well and smoothly in the system across a whole bunch of different clients is this disengagement model. And essentially that just simply predicts whether somebody is going to be opening an email in the next week. And this was sort of our first batch in the suite of behavioral products. And the way this thing works, essentially it takes the profiles that Neil was talking about and pulls out all sorts of signals out of that, and a signal being anything from life in the system to any demographic vars that makes sense, to geographic vars that make sense, and so on and so on. And it uses an ensemble gradient boosting scheme to essentially predict whether the probability of an individual opening an email within the next week.
And because we're seeing the user over time, and we're seeing the page views and conversions in the entire traffic stream, it gives us an awful lot of data to play with to actually get to this predictive model, rather than just looking at sort of the open and click and only that. And normally when people are looking at that, they're looking at it on sort of a campaign basis, as opposed to that single user that exists within that entire infographic.
That's right. And I mean, this is just an example of one of the models that is in the behavioral suite. And the reason that it works is exactly what Neil said. I mean, the profiles are really rich, right? I mean, they're not quite your medical history, but they're along those lines. Right? They're everything that individual has ever done. And you know, and essentially a good data storage or a good profile is one that you can read and understand what the person has done, right? I can go and look at what Neil has read on Business Insider and understand what he's interested in, right? Physically, I can just open it up and look at the log, and that's the sort of richness that allows for these things to work. So the typical output of a model like this will in histogram form will be something along these lines, where you have a scale of, say, here 0 to 1, and you're saying that, okay, well, most users here are going to disengage, right? That's why you have a big spike on the left-hand side. Most users here are not going to disengage, so they're going to continue reading what they were reading or buying what they were buying, and then there are some guys on the other end. So you can imagine how a client could come into this and batch this up and say, create me a smart list of people who have a probability of disengaging of 50% and above, and let's leave those alone. Let's send them a coupon. Let's find out why. Let's do a statistical analysis on those. Let's do an A/B test on those guys, and so on and so on. These are some typical results for those models. They oscillate. So, pretty much everyone will keep doing what they've always been doing. So it's always kind of a catch the tail end of the distribution kind of thing. So, you can have a model that will say, oh, everybody is going to engage, and it'll be 99% accurate. But you're really trying to catch the guys who are going to be flipping back and forth. So you're interested in the sort of true positives versus true negatives situation, and that explains that. So for the clients that are running now, for the most part, the models oscillate in the 75 to 93% accuracy on the true positive and true negatives, which, if you get a 51% accurate signal for a model, and you trade on that, right? So you win. So that's okay. That's essentially the example I was going to talk about.
It got shortened. That's good timing, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, a lot of the models that we're looking at are all about trying to figure out the most quality way of communicating with the user rather than quantity. So everything that we're trying to do is make that quality increase so that we're always engaging those users. He is specifically hiring. He needs like a whole bunch of data people. So if you're interested, we are definitely hiring. We're hiring in all kinds of areas, actually, but definitely for this audience, we're definitely hiring.
So it's a good place to work, and we also have a lot of really good problems, right? I mean, this is just an example of a few things we're doing, right? And the behavioral suite is one of the core products that I think needs to be developed. A bunch of it has been developed, but it's going to keep growing and become essentially an integral part of the business.
We have a lot of data to play with, too.
A lot of data. Things we haven't even talked about.
Thank you very much.
Not at all. Thank you. Oh, sorry,